welcome back to Calicchio's Classroom. Today we're going to be talking about part 2 of the Age of Exploration video. We're going to dive into the European explorers that reached North and South America from the periods of 1492 to about 1700. We're not going to really go into a lot of detail, only for the fact that there are so many events and effects from those events that we could talk about this for days, weeks, months, years, decades, centuries, millennia. And I have that kind of time, but you probably don't. So let's see if we can chunk this up into about 10 minutes, all right? Let's have a look. So the first explorer we're going to talk about is the most famous of them all, Christopher Columbus. As the rhyme goes, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We're taught this from the very youngest of age, and we know that our daring young hero Christopher Columbus sailed across the treacherous Atlantic Ocean and hoping to find a western passage to India. Well, through the grace of God, he was able to get through all this adversity and reach San Salvador, proclaiming the people living there as Indians. Now, people might say he was lucky, giving him credit for the mass migration of everybody to the Americas, but I'm going to debunk some of these myths real quick in a session I'm going to call my mini rant. What's up, Columbus? You've been dead for like 600 years, and now in America we celebrate you. You're actually a federal holiday, and you're right up there with some really good company like George Washington and Martin Luther King. So you must have been a really good guy. I'm just being told that you weren't, and here's some reasons why. Number one, you're a fraud. You never discovered America. You didn't even get to the continent. Not only that, the Native Americans who came here 25, 30,000 years ago who walked across the land bridge, they're the ones that actually discovered the land. They just didn't write it down. Also, you're not the first European to do it. Celts, Hebrews, and Phoenicians all came across the Atlantic Ocean on much smaller boats, mind you, 1,000 years before you did. The Vikings did it as well. Leif Erikson, there's documented archaeological proof. So why is it on you? Number two, everyone claims that you thought the world was flat. That's like some historical myth we're taught as children. You knew the world wasn't flat. Ptolemy knew the world wasn't flat. So by using his model incorrectly, on both of your accounts, you get credited. And number three, you mistreated an indigenous population of Taino people. Now, some people would argue that it wasn't actually your fault and that as historians, of course, we should never judge people by the standards that we live by today, but you were pretty bad even for your time. As I recall, once you went back to Spain and your homegirl, Queen Isabella, died, you got arrested for your mistreatment of people, thank you to Bartolome de las Casas, who wrote about how bad of a person you are. Am I happy that you're dead? Probably. Do I think we should have a holiday after you? Definitely not. Sincerely, Mr. Calicchio. Columbus's success did bring other European explorers from all over the continent to the New World. John Cabot in 1497 landed in Nova Scotia area, Newfoundland, and Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian sailing for the Spanish similar to Columbus, landed in Brazil and sailed all the way up the coast to the Caribbean. In 1513, Juan Ponce de Leon landed in Florida, and Vasco Balboa was the first European to set his eyes on the Pacific Ocean. Maybe. He's at least the first one to write about it. It was at this time that these Spanish explorers were finding things that were very important, and that was gold. Because with gold meant that there was a reason for people to be here. Before we go any further, let's talk about the Central and Southern Native American tribes that were the ones that dealt with the Spanish explorers. The two that we're going to talk about today are the Aztecs and the Inca. Now, the Aztecs were like the most dominant Central American tribe located in Tenochtitlan, which is in present-day Mexico City. Now, back in the 1500s, there was a lake that went all the way around Tenochtitlan that has now dried up, and now Mexico City is there. It's built upon it. But you have to understand that Tenochtitlan was not some really awful place to be. It was a symbol of beauty, philosophy, art, government, bureaucracy. The only thing that they did that was kind of weird was human sacrifice. They like totally killed humans in the name of their gods because they said their gods, demanded human sacrifice and blood, and they ate the heart of the person that they were sacrificing. A little strange to the Europeans, who of course were Catholic, and they did not like this heathenism, especially in a time of the Reformation when Protestantism was spreading throughout Europe. They wanted to spread their Catholicism to everybody who they wanted to. So of course, this created a big old problem. And so Hernan Cortez, a conquistador, he was able, with his guns and his armor and his cannons, even though he didn't have that many people, he was able to persuade other tribes to attack the Aztecs. Now, you would think that the Aztec warriors, who had been living there for hundreds of years, would have been able to defend themselves, and they would have, if not for smallpox, which we will talk about a little bit later. But due to the disease, not only did the king die and was replaced with this other guy, Montezuma, who wasn't that good of a leader, the weapons and the Spanish superiority was able to defeat the Aztec Empire with very little problem. Now, if we talk about the Inca, who are located in Peru, in the city of Cusco, you have to understand that another conquistador, Francisco Pizarro, also attacked. And similarly, with his weapon superiority and his immunity to disease like smallpox, another king died and was replaced with another sort of terrible leader named Atahualpa. And even though Pizarro did not have the same amount of men, he was able to defeat the Inca and overthrow and crush their civilizations. So as you can see, the Europeans are winning these early battles pretty uncontestedly and taking everything, especially the gold, making Spain a very rich empire. Now, Spain is not the only kingdom that got involved in European colonization in the Americas. France, England, and the Netherlands were also very prominent, in North America especially, and as well as the Caribbean. But let's talk about North America first. The French in the 1530s started with Jacques Cartier. He explored the St. Lawrence River and the St. Lawrence Gulf. You also have Samuel de Champlain in the early 1600s setting up the colony of Acadia and founding the city of Quebec. Go Nordiques. If we want to talk about France, also in the Caribbean, they do have some islands, including Haiti, which will be very, very important for the slave trade, as well as Napoleonic politics later. The English, as we know, the English were very successful with Roanoke. Just kidding. It was a terrible failure. Up until recently, most people did not know where the lost civilization went from Roanoke because it mysteriously disappeared with the words Croatoan written on a tree. But due to a lot of archaeological research, we can sort of guess that the people in that area assimilated with the Native Americans, and this is seen through blue eyes and blonde hair through Native American populations. The first successful colony was Jamestown in 1607, which pretty much only survived because of the tobacco crop, which John Rolfe smuggled, supposedly, from the Spanish, and married Pocahontas, and then Mel Gibson got really mad. Oh no, wait, that's actually Pocahontas 2, which is horrible. Don't watch that movie. But Jamestown was able to survive, even though it was a joint stock company and lost most of its investors' money. The king later in the 1630s made it a royal colony, and because of tobacco, was able to fund it and actually earn the crown some money. Up north in Massachusetts, in Cape Cod, you find the Pilgrims landing at Plymouth in 1620 via the Mayflower. Now, they were actually heading to Virginia, but they got blown off course. So if you want to go to Virginia, it's really bad direction. Whoever was driving the boat should definitely be fired. But with the Mayflower, the Pilgrims really left Europe because of the fact that they wanted religious freedom. They were Puritans. They didn't get along with the Church of England. Due to them leaving, they could practice their own religion. In 1630s, Maryland was also created as a proprietary colony, in which one person, Lord Baltimore, was granted a lot of land. And this is actually where the Catholics went, because Catholics were not actually welcome in England, so most Catholics went to Maryland. And finally, let's talk about the Dutch. Most people don't really give the Dutch a lot of credit, and through one of their explorers who sailed for them, Henry Hudson, he was able to, in 1611, find the Hudson Valley, even though he was looking for a northwest passage to India, which would never happen, because, of course, the 4 times he tried, he would fail each time due to ice and cold. But what he did find was a suitable river and an island at the mouth of this river. That would be present-day New York City. But back then, he was sailing for the Dutch, and he claimed it as New Amsterdam. And New Amsterdam was a fort, and this fort was really good for trading with the local Indian population there. Now, the natives there didn't hate them, but they didn't like them either. It was pretty mutual in terms of just trade only. Other than that, the Dutch had some land in the Delaware area, but it wasn't too much to talk about. The most notable thing for the Dutch is that they had a lot of land in the Caribbean, and just like the French and the English, were very involved in the African slave trade. You might not think of the Dutch that much as major proponents of the slave trade, but they made a lot of money off the backs of millions of people. On the topic of slavery and genocide and disease spreading, all this other fun stuff, let's talk about the Columbian Exchange. For those of you who don't know, the Columbian Exchange is the swapping of food, animals, technology, and disease from the Old World, Europe, Africa, and Asia, to the New World, North and South America. The New World had a lot of great things to offer. Tomatoes, potatoes, lima beans, all the things that are essential to Old World foods that we might think of today, like pizza. Wouldn't have had pizza if we didn't have tomatoes, which were found in the New World. Ireland, a country completely dependent on the potato from the 16 to the 1800s, that was all thanks to the New World. Potatoes are from the New World. At the same time, though, Native Americans living in, especially in the United States, they needed horses to catch buffalo. Horses weren't native to the New World, they were native to the Old World. So, of course, when we brought them over, it made their lives a little bit better. For a little bit. Until we kicked them all off their land. But you know, semantics, it's cool. You got horses for like 200 years. We'll have your land. Overall, the Columbian Exchange, which gave a swapping of food and animals, also brought diseases. Our bodies from the Old World, Europeans speaking, were used to smallpox. We're used to the plague. Our bodies have been through that. We're not used to that. New World people weren't. So if we were to cough on our hands and we would have a virus and we give it to the people in the New World, they're going to die. And they're going to die by the millions. It's estimated that about 25 million people lived at this time, and that's a lowball estimate. It was around 1 million people are left. It's almost about a 90% drop. Anywhere between 50 to 90% of the people living that had died because of the Columbian Exchange. The Age of Exploration and the Columbian Exchange are not as cut and dry as people want it to be. Yes, millions of people probably died due to disease and murder and rape and genocide. At the same time, dietary switches caused a population increase that doubled the population of the world from the arrival of Columbus until the creation of the United States in 1776. And this is all due to dietary changes from the foods that were swapped. So as you can see, yes, we lost millions of people, but we also gained millions more. It's not a simple topic to talk about, but at the same time, it does reinforce the issue that what does happen when cultures collide? What does happen when cultural diffusion is very prominent? I'll leave you with that. Thanks for watching.